Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. This might be the last video on this monitor, my 1084S. Yeah, sorry, we're on a wobble cam. You can see I've taken the back off. I switched this on last night to try and help me diagnose something with another system. I need this connected up to the 4000 and a serial cable. Anyway, that's besides the point. I switched it on, it was alright for a minute or two, and then suddenly we got an arcing noise and the frame and line start to collapse. So if you imagine a square picture, this corner here is like pulled in sort of down here, yeah, and you get some deviation between the red, green and blue as if the convergence is affected, and you can hear little clicks and arcs. I switched it off really quickly, took the back off, had an inspector around, looked all around the components and things now you can't see, and then noticed, you're not able to see it, corrosion on the coil here. So super annoying, it might be game over. But because it's just in this corner, and I was casting my mind back, I think it was like part 5 or 6, it might be part 5, I think 6 was the switch, wasn't it? When we did the Punisher stuff and I switched this on, and the same thing was happening, collapsed frame and all that. Made a fuzzing noise a minute ago, high voltage or something, like something arcing. Come out of the way, Luigi. Look, I can hear it now. Out of the way! Don't know if you could hear that. And then I cleaned around a few things and stuff and it was alright. So I think it was just minor at the time, it was arcing. Now I think we've got like almost a short. Now, because it's in this corner here, it might be only, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 windings in. I might be able to just separate the windings, work out the shortest, put some lacquer. I've got some Corona stuff, you know, it's like for 12 kilovolts or 25 kilovolts or more, it's like rated really high. And I could put some of that there if I can separate the windings, and it might be alright. So yeah, that's what I'm going to pick up now. I've got to pull this off the bench here, remove the baseboard here, mark all of these lines on the rings and stuff, you know, for the convergence and all that. Try and break any glue and slide the yoke off. Yes, the lighting's not very good here. I'm just going to just mark very carefully here. I mean, they're already marked with that white mark, but I'm just going to just simply draw a line like that. So in the attempt that I can try and get it dialed in as near as possible, and obviously we need to sort of extend down, and I'm noting that I'm looking at this from the right hand side downwards. And for my own benefit, I'm just filming where that is, where it's offset. And then likewise, you know, you could argue this is crazy, I could just adjust it manually myself, but I'm putting the ruler straight on that line in the middle there, yeah, and I'm going to put a red mark there, and then if I can, I'm going to just draw a little mark there, just so, you know, because this, yeah, when you tilt this, the picture goes like that, yeah. Obviously I can, you know, tweak this when we come to get it back together, but it may never work again, because the only thing you can do is, if these are totally shorted, is to rewind it, you know, get some new wire and rewire the whole thing. I'm not going to have the skill and patience to do that, I don't think. Yeah, so without further ado, we need to take the base off carefully, move that out of the way. You don't need to disconnect the anode cap for this one, I don't think. Now the problem here is, like I say, these are all going to shift around, and they need to, because they're glued. We've got a screw here, so if we carefully undo that screw, and I guess the other thing I should do here actually as well is just make a mark down on the inside of that ring, just so I can see where it goes up to. I can't honestly remember if there's any way that it can go further, or, you know, further foot. I think it can. I think it can come back. This is the thing. So again, I think that's on the plastic, isn't it? So again, we'll just draw a line here and here, just to try and allow me to get that in the right spot as well. So carefully undo that. And it's been years since I've done something like this, so you know what, I honestly can't remember the best way of getting this off. Is it a case of like twisting a bit like that? Yeah, you see like this plastic bit, I can't remember why that rotates. Is that a thing as well? Do you know what I mean? I don't know, I'm just going to put a little mark there. I don't honestly know what that ring does. Oh look, it's coming off, look. I think we need to... I might have to pull this off totally first. Like that. And then, does this come off? Nope. And this is the thing you see. Oh look, and the plastic's crumbling here, I think, or is that glue? It's a bit of glue. This is where we may need to get a bit of IPA on in order to try and free this thing up. Like that, yeah, so you saw that. So we need to take these rings off, not lose the order of them in case they fall off that. Yeah, so this is why it may never work again. We've got another one of these clamps here, look, so very carefully try, without putting too much pressure on, just undo it. What's that stuck on? Might need to undo the screw and then widen it. Oh, yeah, there we go. So that one's the rear one. I'll just put that back in there. So we've got the same sort of issue here now. Now bear in mind, it's kind of... Oh, there we go. I was going to say glued onto the actual thing there. Oh, there we go. This is where we need to carefully now slide it like this. Hope it doesn't break. Gently does it. Gently, gently, gently. Oh, hang on. I knew I forgot some of the connections down here for the yoke. We've got the plastic connector. I'll show you in a sec what that is. Hang on. Just pull it this way, pull it off, pull it away. Yeah, that's what I forgot to unplug. And you can see the issue here. Look, corrosion, corrosion. This is the side, I think, where the problem is. Now, the interesting thing here, and I did see, I've got vague recollections of seeing a previous video on this. And when I say previous video on this, I mean on someone else's channel. I'll try and find it, I'll post a link. Now, I think he failed in his repair, but one of the things he pointed out, and it's the same thing here, so he was spot on. This rubber, this is where the corrosion started. Yeah, the rubber has had some sort of chemical reaction with the coil. Yeah, and it was in the top left, it seemed to have collapsed, and it looks burnt. Yeah, I'll get you some better light in a minute, but that looks burnt. But if I can somehow separate these from each other and get some of that, is there a connect? There's one there as well, look, that actually might be where the short is, I don't know. It could be game over for it. Anyway, let's just see what we can do. So I'm just going to carefully put this back onto the bench now, actually. So here's a better look at the issue. You can see that's where it's blackened, so I think this is where the short is. This side's just a bit greeny here. I don't think that's shorted. There's a tiny little bit down there. You know what, it might be salvageable if I can work out what's gone on here. And I think the way I will do that is initially with a cotton bud and some IPA. Now the IPA might dissolve the lacquer there. This is a potential problem. I'm not sure if you can see my ear sticking through there. So I'm just gently wiping over this here. I think the wires are intact. I actually think what's happened is just two of these have shorted here. It's just a question of how deep it goes and whether we can actually electrically isolate them or not. But anyway, I'm going to have to report back, but you can see, you know, it's starting to clean up a bit here, but there's definitely a lump here which suggests that it might be fairly deep. I might have to, you know, remove this glue here. And is it this glue? This is the thing. What is this green stuff? You know, is that just corrosion? It's got like a plasticky sort of look to it. I actually think it's this stuff that's reacted with the enamel. And you know what? Something that has just crossed my mind. If we want to stand a chance of working out what's going on with this in terms of repair, we really should just put the multimeter here, measure resistance, measure these coils, because we'll see a resistance change as we progress. Now, I'm not sure. We've got green and blue. Let's just check between green and blue, red and yellow, I think. Let's try green and blue. No, green and red. Yeah, we got 5.4 ohms there, so maybe it's the bottom two for the other one. I've just got to try and hold it on there, make a really good connection. Hang on a sec. Yeah, 12.2 ohms between yellow and green. And it's really hard to get a good connection there. We got like 4.4, 4.5 ohms between red and blue. Let's just check between the other combinations here, because I don't think we should get anything. Yeah, so I think I've measured those the correct way. It'll be interesting to see how that changes as I progress with this. Yeah, so a minute or two later, just gently trying to lift that wire there on the outside. It was already broken. So I've lifted it right up here and right up there, and then we can just try now and just gently clean underneath and see if we need to dig further. I mean, that could be the issue, but it still looks a little bit black in there to me, so you might have to dig down a little bit further. So you're on Super Macro there, you can see we've got the unbroken connection. What I'm just trying to do is just separate and lift, and I've managed to lift one or two of these up a little bit in order to get a bit further in there. So yeah, I'll perhaps report back, but so far I've got some corroded, super corroded traces here, and despite the fact we've got a break, still measuring resistance, which shows there's a short somewhere here still. I'd be happy if, as I dig this out, we find there are no more breaks, and then as I separate these pieces here, the resistance goes open circuit. If that happens, I will attempt to try and repair it. IPA obviously is going to dissolve the lacquer, so you know what, we could make things worse here, but when I'm finished, I'm going to put some of that Corona stuff, the Corona lacquer, over this bit here, I think, and treat this bit here, I think, remove that green blob. I don't think that's a short, and yeah, anyway, let's just see what I can do. Yeah, you can tell it's not going well. Look how deep the rabbit hole goes, though. I've pulled all these wires out so far. Every one of these was short in here. We still got short, and we still got a little bit of blackness there. So I need to keep going. It's so annoying, this. What I might have to do is start to pull each of these strands further afield, try and get them away from the area, because it's going to be really hard, isn't it, trying to coat these individually, letting it dry and then putting them back in and stuff without getting shorts and things. So game over, I think. So when you're working on something like this, it's quite difficult to know whether you've made the progress you want or not. It's like, we know we've got an open winding here. If I measure across the red and blue on there, we get 4.5 ohms roughly. If I join this back up, it kind of measures 3, which, but that was with the clips, test clip, which is adding 1.2 or more ohms into the equation. So you know what, I'm just going to try and tin the end of this enameled wire here and join back up with a tiny piece of what I think is the same gauge. It might be slightly thicker, actually. It came from Alison Challis there. Now, you know, I've got enough wire there, I could rewire this, but it's an art. There's a skill to it. You need to know exactly how to you know, twist the wire in and out and around. You've got to get the right length, it's got to be the right impedance. So yeah, I don't think this is going to work. I just want to see, because you'd expect if there's two halves of this with the same Yeah, that looks like the same thickness, doesn't it? If it's the same, you know, you've got two halves here, and if these are the same resistance, when this is finally put back in circuit with slightly less resistance, it should half. It should half, I think. So yeah, I'd kind of expect from 4.5 ohms down to 2.2 maybe. And if it doesn't, that suggests that there's a short somewhere still. Anyway, I'm not going to leave it like this. This is just a test. Yeah, a test to just measure resistance to see, does it look like we've removed the short. Right, that's back in circuit that coil. Let's just measure and see where we're going. Yeah, 3 ohms again. And this is the thing, this is what makes me doubt. You know, we got 3 ohms now, when that there was open circuit, we had 4.5 ohms. And I think you've got this half here in parallel with that half. I could be wrong, but if you look at the way, well, it's pretty hard to see, but like the blue and red windings, that's red, that's blue. The red comes up to here, and it looks like we've got 2 windings. You know, you've got this winding that goes around there as well, that's part of that same thing. And the blue one, yeah, I don't know, it's really hard to see what's going where here. If we powered that up now, I think the picture would be as it was, where it's like pulling down in one corner, because one half of this here is incorrect. There must still be a short further in, or it just could be that all of this stuff where the enamel has melted off here, something somewhere there is still showing. But what I tried to do, I left the meter on resistance mode and I moved things around and kept an eye on it. I couldn't seem to see a single change, which suggests that maybe I've still got some other issue. Maybe this is another short, like, I mean, I don't think that's a short. Maybe I should investigate that next. Yeah, so at this point I thought I was going to have to swap out the yoke entirely, but I was just after a bit of advice, so I posted on Twitter. I had a nice, helpful, friendly reply from RMC, he retweeted, and Adrian's Digital Basement. Check out both of those channels, there'll be links down below. Adrian's fixed quite a lot of CRTs, I always enjoy CRT repairs. Right, so I'm not really sure if the resistance is correct, to be honest, because I was thinking about this and it was like 4 and 4. You'd kind of expect 2. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to use some UV solder mask paint, start in the corner down here, and obviously use, where's it gone, ultraviolet light and hot air to set it, and then just like, once that's set, reintroduce a couple more wires, put some more on, set it, some more wires, some more on, set it, etc, etc, until I eventually get this almost looking normalish. And then I'll shorten the length of this wire here. Hang on, it's broken off. So as you can see, a bit of a mess here. Now my plan is to use some varnish. Yeah, is that the right type of varnish? I did actually have a look at what kind of varnish is that's used to cover these, and chemically the main ingredient of this is the same thing. So yeah, I'm just going to carefully try and open this. And obviously I mean to make sure I don't knock this over or drop this. Yeah, it's kind of like a browny yellow. I was hoping for more clear, but anyway, it's as clear as it's going to get. Let's just carefully just put this over there, and I'm just going to use this pointy tool here just to distribute some of this. Yeah, and it's going to run all over the place, look. Yeah, and what I'm going to do is coat all of these wires with this. I will need to use some magnification, I think, to do this properly. Bear in mind we've got one wire to fix and one wire that needs, let's say, a lot of covering. And the key really is going to be to get some right in down there. Yeah, into the gap. There's like a gap in the corner where, the edge down here. And what I will do is I'll get some of this more of it on the surface later. But anyway, the first point here is just to, as I say, just try and go over these like this. Yeah, I'll do this with magnification. Try and separate them so they're not touching to each other, so that they don't all just bond together. And then I'll use a plastic tool, maybe actually a cotton bud stem, and push them back into position with the cotton bud stem. Wouldn't use a metal tool because you'll scratch the coating back off. And we'll give it a try, because you know what, I've got there's a chance I think this may work.
Losing time, I'm fading fast.
So as you can see, I had a slight change of plan. So we used a bit of varnish initially, and then I've used some solder mask paint here. It's UV, you know, it sets with ultraviolet. So let's give this another go. And I'm starting to squash the wires back in after adding layers of this UV paint here. Now, from what I understand, the rating on this stuff is like 500 volts. And I think the coils, you're probably looking around 100, 105 volts, I think, on the horizontal side, maybe on this. I mean, I think there's a horizontal side. Yeah, there is, isn't there? There's horizontal and vertical deflection on these, so. And I think this is the horizontal, so it's going to be higher voltage. Whether we get a short, you know, here, you know, this is the thing. But what I'm doing is using a cotton bud, just because it's got like a, you know, a paper sort of fabric stalk here, so that I don't scratch any more coating off, or, you know, the solder mask effectively. But then it's just a case of, hang on, where's the brush gone? Yeah, getting the brush, pushing a little bit of the solder mask out here, getting a wee bit of solder mask paint. And obviously we've got heat here as well, so the heat from the lamp and the heater, hang on, is making it dry a lot quicker. You know, I could feel it drying as I was putting it on there. And of course, as you bend these wires, the cone can come off and then you could have a short. Do you see what I mean? And there could be a chemical reaction between the solder mask paint here and the varnish. 2 lots of varnish, the varnish I've added and the varnish that was already there. Anyway, I'm just going to manipulate a few more of these wires back into place. And the final part of the problem here is the nice formed straight lines and things here. We aren't going to have that, are we? It's going to be a wee bit bodgy. So yeah, it's a case of using magnification and then sort of coming in and trying to massage these back into approximately where they came from, which is easier said than done, you know. And it's a case of revisiting previous sections as well, I think, just to try and push them down further. Again, apply some heat, apply the solder mask paint, etc. Yeah, well, this is super messy work. So we haven't got very many wires to go back in now. We've got one that needs to be fixed here, one on the end right on the underside you can't see, that's got a point that's almost snapped, so we need to do something with that. And what I'll probably do is get some really, really thin heat shrink tubing over both sections of those bits that I'm going to fix. We've got nothing to lose, have we? Because if I don't do this, it is game over. And I'm kind of accepting, to be honest, it's probably game over. If it works, then I'll be over the moon. It does take quite a while to dry this. Really, you need the UV lamp set on a particular point. You need a brighter UV lamp than this. And you need it for at least, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, and then hot air, and then another 5 or 10 minutes, and then it usually goes pretty hard. Right, after the SD card broke, everything is breaking here. I've actually just gone and ordered a monitor. A guy on eBay was kind enough to accept £100, reduced it, well, and I say, you know, kind enough to accept £100. Was it really worth £100? Well, to me, yes, because apparently it works. It's a D2, and I think it's the same. I think it's the same tube and stuff, but it might not be. I know that there's some variations. So, yeah, hopefully I might be able to get a yoke from the D2, but then I'll have a spare tube and a spare line up transformer, and obviously the stuff on the board. The case is a bit worse than mine, so I'd prefer to fix mine rather than that, but I figure it's a good idea to have a spare. Even if this works, it's a good idea to have a spare, isn't it? And we can perhaps do a video on the other one, maybe even try and repair the other one. So I thought I'd just show you this final bit, and I've done this with one of the coils already. One of them has already heat shrunk and stuck in there. This is the one that burned out completely, the one on the outer edge. So what I've done is, as you can see, a piece of heat shrink, but I've just soldered a piece of coil wire the same thickness to the edge there. Yeah, put the heat shrink on that. I've also tinned the end with solder here, ready. This side here, we can't get a bite with the solder, so this is the thing, super fiddly to deal with these, because, well, the shape of it and everything. It's a case of putting something flat under it, and then fiberglass pen, really carefully sort of go in the right direction without putting too much force on. Try and hold everything stable, and try and rough the surface. Yeah, it kind of looks shiny. So yeah, don't obviously heat the wire when the heat shrink's on, or you'll shrink the heat shrink. Let's just add a bit of solder there, please join. And you've got to be really careful the solder doesn't fall into the cone here. I think that's sort of tinned now. And obviously if you heat this too long, the coating inside there could wear off. This is the thing that makes this really difficult, so this is why I'm calling it a fail, this. I'd be very surprised if my bodgery here works. So then the next thing is, because we've got a tiny piece of extended wire on here, because it had gone completely, you know, like a massive hole in it, it had actually, you know, lost a bit of its length. What I need to do now is try to bring these two in parallel with each other. So I'm just going to carefully, hang on, separate them a little bit, slide the tubing over that piece. Yeah, and I do need the two pieces of tubing, because otherwise I'm going to end up with a short, probably, because I would expect the length of this to be not very well protected. It's probably, you know, the heat probably will have melted the coating off. So we'll just get a fresh bit of solder onto the iron, and then the technique here is the side where I got the extension of the wire here soldered there, grab it, crimp on the actual wire. It's really hard to fill and undo this. Try and hold them in parallel with each other, easier said than done, and add the solder. Yeah, so somehow I've managed to miraculously join that. Looks like a garden, doesn't it? Looks like something's grown in here. So yeah, this is the hard bit now, is trying to see if we can, there we go, slide that up. And we can, that's not too bad, is it? So I'll just use some hot air, 100 degrees. I hope that doesn't break when I push it back into place, but it's got a slight bit of additional length, so I think that should be alright. Yeah, hopefully you can just about read the meter there. So I'm going between blue and red. It should be about 4.5 ohms or so. Oh, hang on, it's gone down. There we go, 3.2 ohms. 4 ohms. If I bend the probes though, 3.4 ohms, that's really low. 3.3 ohms. Oh, I'm surprised at that. So that's made a big difference. It's changed from like what was 4.5, 4.6 ohms-ish to 3.5. Maybe 3.2 ohms. So is that right? Is that wrong? I'm kind of thinking it's wrong still. You know, I was looking at some of the other ones online, some of the other monitors, and they should be like 2 ohms or 2.2 ohms, so 3.3 ohms. That doesn't sound good, does it? It does sound like there's another short somewhere else, maybe. The main thing is, we now know what it measured like that. So when I heat this up and press that back in, if it breaks, we'll see a change, we'll know. So yeah, it's just coming from the top side, I think. At least I don't need to worry about that wire shorting at that point, but it could have melted back further in, you know, somewhere in the bit that I've not exposed. That is the problem here. Just for good measure, I'm just going to heat some of this stuff here as well. Now, I am not sure, as I say, even if the coil's alright, if there aren't any shorts, what happens to the deflection when you've got a bodgy bit like this here? Is it going to be uneven? You know, because it's going to might stand up further nearer to the screen than this side. I might have to try and squash this down. That might then damage the fix work I've done. Is that a bit of solder on there? What's that? Yeah. Oh. Yeah, there's a particle of solder there. I need to get that out. Right, I've just carefully reassembled it. It's not completely secured stuff. I need to do something more with the alignment and everything. I'll show you. It's a bit loose. I've just carefully put it there, and I've not tightened the two clamps up all the way. So the knee's on. So I'm going to carefully switch it on. Just listen. There's no arcing noise. So I mean, hey. So it's just the rings. I think I fixed it. Unless it's a short-lived repair, and obviously it needs moving further towards the front. Yeah, so the convergence rings are well out there, but first signs are it seems all right. Wow, I'm surprised. Yeah, it's going to be fun and games trying to get this dialed in, I think. And the other problem is that obviously it's tilted to one side a wee bit, and that's because of all that stuff sticking out. So I'm going to need to flatten it down. Yeah, which gave me an opportunity to reply to Adrian and point out there's always hope. Yeah, if you're determined enough and persistent, you can always find a way to fix things in general. I mean, alright, there are exceptions. If your tube neck breaks off, you can't replace that. Well, you can put a new tube in, but you see what I'm trying to say. Most things, yeah, there's always hope. Don't give up. If you get stuck with something, go away and have a think, and you may come up with an idea on how to get around the problem. So after that quick test, there are a few things I just want to do. Now, we've got no chance of levelling this side here to be as flat as this side, you know, it sticks up a bit. I figure though, what I might be able to do is just cut some of the rubber. You know, there's like 3 rubber mounts that mount with this, and if we just cut a piece off the one on this side, maybe with a bit of pressure it may fit sort of level. But the other thing, we've still got one of those green blobs there, and that's the stuff that corrodes, I think. And I think ultimately it's this stuff that turns chemically into something else. I don't know. I've tried getting this off. It's rock hard, and I don't want to chip it. If I try and chip that off with a tool, I'm going to expose the enamel, and then we're going to get shorts. And there's a bit just down that gap there. I'm just going to get some varnish and varnish over it, because I figure that it's going to need oxygen probably for a chemical reaction to continue. So I'm just going to varnish that. I'm going to varnish the rubber stuff. Some of it, like I say, I've been able to chip off. And then we'll isolate the rubber bung, stick some Captain tape over the end of it or something, so the rubber that mounts with this, I'll just put some Captain tape there. Now this could start a reaction, but I don't think so. I think this will, if I set this, I'll use some hot air just to try and give it a bit of solidification. I mean, you could argue I could stick a bit of varnish around there, but I don't want to go overboard here. I just want to focus on these 2 bits. That should do it, I think. So I'm just going to use a bit of hot air again. I'll just get the lid back on that varnish before I knock it over. Yeah, the heat should just help set that. And then I'm going to turn my attention to the monitor in terms of trying to do an adjustment for this side here. So bear in mind I've just been heating this. The final resistance reading is around between 3 and 3.2 ohms on this, on a 1084D1/D2. Now I think I'm saying D2 because I think it's the same chassis, but you can see as it's cooling, it's around 3 ohms, just a bit over, and that's between red and blue. So I'll test the other coils as well that we're not using here. I think these are the vertical deflection. You can see about 12 ohms roughly, 11.6 ohms, 11.5. Let's just wobble the probes around a little bit. Sometimes you get a slightly different reading based on the resistance. When you're dealing with a low resistance heater, the cleanliness of your probes and the cable impedance and stuff, you know, if you've got cheap multimeter, can make all the difference. But anyway, about 11.5 ohms-ish, so I'd pencil in about 12 ohms there, roughly. The next thing I'll do is just see if we can get the micro Henry rating for those. I'm not sure I've got a meter that'll do it. Yeah, and actually this should do it. It's LCR, so it should do inductors, I think. And the easy way to measure with this, because it's got fine probes, is probably from here on the red and the blue. And according to that, it's 1.476 millihenries, 1.5. We'll just do a couple of different tests there. May just clip the probes back on a second time as well, just to get kind of like an average. Same again. We just relocate those a little bit, just to get sort of fresh connection on a different point of the wire. Just see if it makes any difference, because sometimes a tiny bit of resistance difference can make a change. No, pretty solid. Yeah, so 1.5 millihenries. So let's do the other coil. So the other coil is green and yellow. Right, we're on leg cam again, green and yellow this time. I just need to just check that the yellow is connected to the resistor. It looks like it is. That's what I've clipped onto. 20 millihenries. So there you go. At least you know what those the resistance and the inductance should be for those two coils. Right, I'm having to hold the camera here, so I just need to get these bits of the white silicon stuff off here. This side, yeah, it needs moving up this way, just a little bit, I think. Maybe, I don't know, so about there, just to give it more clearance, because I can't squash the coils down. It's well and truly stuck on there, and it's pretty hard, that, actually. I'm not sure if that was once rubber. So I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to stick a piece of Captain tape over each of these, but I'm going to try and relocate this. I'm just going to dab a cotton bud with some IPA, just try and get under the edge of that, just see if I can. I'm going to draw a line though first, I'll show you. Yeah, we'll draw a, try and stay away from that HT cable, and obviously being very careful on the back of the tube here. Let's just draw a line there. I'm not even sure if that's visible. In fact, it's not even marking the tube, is it? I've got a black one. Let me go and get a black one. It doesn't help that the tube's kind of reddish, but I'm going to draw a black line around that, try and get it off with some IPA, and then just try and move it up a little bit and re-secure it. And I think just by virtue of removing just the end piece of that, it broke. Hang on, let me just see if I can just get this off without breaking the neck of the tube. I had to put the camera down there where I slid it back. Can you see? It's just broke, it's crumbled. But because it's not got that little piece on the end, if you look down there, you can see where the green part is. And as I carefully slide this into position, maintaining this part on top here, just get it all the way up like that, you can see here now, because it's not got that little extra bit, it's kind of in the right position. Maybe it just needs pressing. Maybe it just needs pressing, straightening slightly, because it's ever some slightly to this side here. So, you know, it's kind of like that instead of perfect, just a little bit. So I might just need to use the cutters to cut a bit more of that rubber bung off the end there, just so that it fits a bit flusher. Yeah, you can see I'm very, very carefully just edging at this, being careful to not put pressure on the tube neck. Make sure I don't accidentally trim the cable here. Yeah, it's pretty disintegrating, this stuff, actually. You could probably do, well, if you've got one of these, maybe try and replace them when they're in this state. But anyway, that's a bit further back now, so I haven't removed it, you know, and put it further back as I said I would. You can still see the mark here. But what we have done is remove the part that was interfering, so I'll try it out again for size. I might need to cut just a tiny bit further back. I could always just put some hot melt glue or something down there afterwards. You know, it's like a rubbery sort of stuff. Silicon's better, actually. Anyway, let's just see. Right, you're back on the tripod, so we've got 3 pieces of tape that are barely sticking to that, but this is now pressed into position. My little red line is there according to that, so that's pretty straight. I might need to just twist this one way or the other. So the next thing to do is get this band back on. It's got holes here that correspond with the little notches at the side, so you've got to sort of slide it up to position and then spread it out a little bit on both sides until, there you go, the holes are aligned like that. Be really careful as you tighten this up, because all of the plastic on these things is really brittle, much like that rubber stuff was. Yeah, so the screw goes through there like that. Hang on, let me go and get my screwdriver. Just going to finger tighten that to start with, making sure it's in notches, because if you misalign with the notches and you start to tighten it, you'll break them or break the neck. So the notch on the right side's in and the notch on the left side. Now obviously once you've tightened this super tight, you won't be able to then twist the thing. At this point I'm just going to push, hang on, push towards the tube there. I'm just not sure whether we're going to get even deflection here. And what I mean is it going to be pulling one side? Is it going to be slightly diagonal or something? Is that tight? So it's just a question of, is it straight and does it need rotating? Anyway, so we may need to take it back off again yet. So the next thing is the ring assembly here. Now this is a strange one in that this thing here rotates, look. I think this is what locks the rings, isn't it? Yes it is. It took me ages to work that out. Anyway, it goes on this way. Now the mysterious thing with this is these bits here, alright, they hold the rings, but you're like, well, where do they go? Now I did draw this line here, look, and there's a line here which seems to correspond, so I think if we just sort of, and this is a bit of a pain to get on as well. Oh yeah, slide and rotate. I mean, how far does it go? Well, it doesn't go that far, because then these wouldn't join up, so yeah, that would make sense. So I think this has got to go down here, actually, so let's just unlock it and then slide down here up to approximately there. I think that is what that marking's for, and then obviously this will rotate to lock, and that line should be dead in the centre, and then all the rings need to be in the centre. Yeah, I'm not even sure if you could see that, so yeah, here it just needs a slight twist, I think, because it's still not correct. There we go, I think that is. So that would mean the line is there on the edge of that. Does that need to go back a little bit? I think maybe it does. No, it doesn't. It's come forwards a bit now. Yeah, and then the two red lines there, I think, are correctly aligned. It might need to just go marginally, hang on, that way. So again, it's got holes that correspond with the holes on the plastic here. Well, that thing's not wide enough at the moment, I don't think. Let's just widen that somewhat. There we go. Right, so the notches are kind of corresponding, so let's now just tighten it, but not super tight again, just like the one we did earlier. So in other words, get it to grip like that, I think. So that's not going to move anywhere. I can always tighten those up later, so let's now lock the rings. Hang on. Yeah, so that's the lock position, that's the unlocked. Yeah, see, so now the rings don't move, so what we'll do is unlock it, and then we need to twist these around. Some of them are going to be crazy positions, like those two. Get these red lines like this lined up with the line on the tube. In fact, it's not on the tube, as it's on that. And this is the thing, so I might have to just, I don't know, adjust the whole lot independently yet. Right, so I don't know, is that going to be right or not? Let's just give it a try. So the final thing here is obviously to connect the coils back up. Yeah, you may be surprised if you power it on, you don't get anything other than the dot in the middle, and you go like, what's going on? So let's connect that on. We've got to hope it still works after all this faffing around and lack additional drying time, etc. Carefully massage that on. Yeah, just wish me luck. I really don't want to spend hours and hours and hours messing around with all the convergence rings and stuff here. And oh my god, that's it, it's perfect. Maybe the focus needs adjustment, but this is interlace mode, so I expect the flickering. But the convergence and everything's almost spot on. And it looks straight and everything. I'm flipping amazed. Let's put it in a resolution that's not interlaced. You know what, that doesn't look bad. Yeah, the convergence is a bit off on the very top here, that top scan, just towards this corner, well, the whole top scan line, actually, and just there, and maybe this very edge here. But bear in mind, I've probably messed with the width and the height things. If that was shrunk down marginally, I think it'd be okay. I mean, the convergence is out on the top, I can see that. Yeah, so it does need a convergence tweak. Yeah, right, so turn that way to untighten that screw. And then this needs moving again, because you can see here the line. If you follow it straight line, it's to the right of that. So it needs to be like that, and then tightened up. Yeah, and checking the results, yeah, I've gone too far now, because now it's going up here, so let me adjust it back the other way again. It's not far off though now. And a small tilt the other way. That's a lot better. It's not pulling up into this corner as much. And it's kind of like linear now. It's coming down in this corner here a little bit. Just need to adjust the focus next. I'll do that on the floor, I think. So I found the actual service manual for this, but there's very little in terms of explanation about what all the different adjustments do. The multiple pole magnets, as I say, just 2 tabs of the 4 pole magnets change angle between them. And superimpose red and blue vertical lines in the centre area of the picture, blah blah blah. And then you do the same thing with green. The bottom line is, you can see here there's a relationship. You've got blue and red. It says 4 pole magnet movement, and it shows you which way, so they come sort of down and in and inwards together. And then you've got red, blue and green, so there's an interaction there between those, and it shows again which way those adjust. It's like absolute nightmare, really. I used to do this back in the day just by eye. Yeah, incline the yoke up or down, so you know that changes things as well. I've got the picture as straight as it was before, so I'm not going to mess around with the position of the yoke anymore. Incline the yoke right or left, again changes things there. So yeah, this is where the shims, you know, the rubber shims, the one I cut halfway to pieces just to make it just big enough, yeah, that's where those come into account. But if you've not already gathered, and obviously be careful working on things like this, you can kill yourself, as I mentioned in the warning at the beginning of this video. Yeah, you can undo the retaining clip here, you know, this thing that just allows you to free move these really easily. But the problem there is you move one, it moves another. You've got to be holding everything apart from the one you want to move. So the way I do it is just loosen this off a little bit, or try and just move it when it's locked. So, for example, I just a minute ago tweaked the bottom 2, so I'm just going to pull it back slightly upwards. There we go, it's moved a little bit. And which one's the next one? The next one is poking out over here. Being careful to stay away from the HT because it'll still have some charge. And again, you're just going to gently, there we go, just press it a little bit. So with a little bit of force, even though it's locked, you can just move them marginally, and that's the way I would do it if you're trying to tweak. Now, experts would tell you just the best way to do it is do it while it's on. Have a mirror in front of the screen there, the CRT, so you can see, you know, from the back what you're actually adjusting. But you want to stay well away from the HT stuff, the base of the tube. And it's just a bit dangerous. I don't like doing it. I never liked doing it back in the day. I must have done it on a good, I don't know, 50 or so monitors over my time, but once I had a shock from EHT, from a leaking transformer, just from getting my hand near the EHT cable, and it nearly killed me. I would, yeah, I've got the fear of God in me adjusting these things. So yeah, rubber gloves. Wear some rubber gloves if you're going to try and adjust these things, and just stay well away from everything that's potentially lethal. Yeah, so I'm doing a bit of trial and error here. Obviously, power cycles in between of the monitor, those. Yeah, the convergence on the left side here now is off on the green, but on the right side it's okay. So I'm on the, I think it's the 4th band I'm adjusting at the moment. I'll show you in a second. So I'm just going to just tweak it a tiny little bit the other way, and then hopefully it may be spot on, because it's always been the green on this. This is an issue I've always had on this. Oh, the red down here is a bit out of alignment as well, but it's going to be adjusting the two at the same time. So anyway, a slight tweak the other way. Yeah, and you can see the red line there. It's this one here, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4th one. I shouldn't do that. There's magnetism. I can feel it affecting the screwdriver. So yeah, the way I've been doing this is just to release the adjustment a little bit here, not fully, because then it holds the majority of the rings, and then just try not to move the ring that's next to the one you want to move, and just tweak it. Yeah, so I've moved it slightly more left, and I think that's probably going to be hopefully spot on. Now if you undo that thing completely, then they all just move around. Anyway, let's give that a try. Right, that's as good as I can get it, I think. So I'm going to get the back on. I've adjusted the focus and stuff, and the convergence is a lot better. Still not perfect down in this corner when you've got a test pattern up, but it does look pretty darn good. The main thing is it's working. It's worked all this time. No issues at all. So I mean, it could fail over time. Anyway, let's get the lid back on. So it's pretty dark in here at the moment. I've just adjusted the rings in the back of the tube again there. Put them almost back in the original position, to be honest, because you know what, it was pretty spot on. But you can see it's fairly straight here. The east-west just needs a tiny bit of adjustment perhaps, and it's fairly straight here. It does come up in this corner marginally, but it always did do. So it's actually no worse for wear. It's incredible, and the linearity here is fine. You know, I was kind of expecting some sort of linearity issue somewhere, but I can't see any. Yeah, to my eyes it looks perfect. So the 1084S-D2 that I ordered arrived, and look at the state of the case. It was like one layer of bubble wrap around it, and it was pressed right against the side of the cardboard box. Right, we're on the phone camera at the moment, so I got the back off it. You can see the smashed off post here. So yeah, I'm not not very happy, to be honest. Look how dirty it is as well. It's absolutely filthy, as well as the outside of the case being like really yellowed. It's filthy, and it's got a different assembly here. So if I was going to swap this into mine, it probably would work actually, because the tube looks the same. It's Orion. I think mine's an Orion, but it's got this coil here. This is different, yeah. But everything else looks identical, including all the components on the board here. And I think even the line output transformer and everything down there. So yeah, other than it being dusty and obviously the damage to the case, I think this would work as a replacement yoke for mine if I ever needed to swap it out. But I'm not going to do that, I don't think. I think I'm just going to clean this up and, well, see what state it's in, really. So that's the next thing I'm going to do, just get the vacuum on here and get rid of all these bits of the immediate dust. It's going to need a lot more cleaning as I get the board out. Sorry, we're still on the phone camera here. The Amiga 4000 is booting up. I'm just going to switch this on. I'll show you the back, actually. Let's just have a look. Yeah, you can see I'm just precariously testing it this way. We've got HT. Let's just see. Oh my god, it works. Yeah, so it's pretty bright. Let me just reposition myself. Yeah, so looking at it from the front here, you know what? That's not bad, actually. So that's contrast full up, brightness full up. I would say that gives a slightly better picture than the other one, but only marginally. It's just marginally sharper and brighter. The amazing thing is this obviously hasn't been recapped either. But you know what? I'm pretty pleasantly surprised with that. Let's see what the green screen looks like if I can find the thing. Where's it gone near the switch? I can never find it. Hang on. Oh, it's not got a green screen switch, this one. Has it? Yeah, I'm puzzled by that. This one doesn't have the green screen. Yeah, I'm puzzled by that. It doesn't have the green screen switch. Mine does. It's got a switch here somewhere you push in. This one doesn't have that, which is odd because I thought it was almost the same chassis. But anyway, the general clarity stuff there is just fantastic, actually. I'm really pleased with that. So I'll try and get into the door for this. I think you can see the catches there. This side, I think it's broke off, has it? Right, so the main CRT within this video is on test at the moment. You know what, after the last lot of adjustments, it's perfect. It's as good as this other one, really. There's very little in them. I'll show you that in a minute. But anyway, yeah, I've had a partial refund. I removed the piece of the thing with a screw here, unscrewed that. Yeah, so I got £20 back off the seller, but I may need it because we may need to replace this back at some point. But I figure in the meantime, let's use some of that money to, well, I've got some super glue. I'm going to shave the edge of this down a little bit here, yeah, cut a little section of that away in order that I can glue this into position here, get it perfectly in position, put some heat shrink and then some epoxy around this, slide the heat shrink over, shrink the heat shrink and let the epoxy then set. That should hopefully strengthen it, but we may need to replace this section. It's besides the point though. You know what, I could have fixed this and just said, look, it's alright, I fixed it, you don't need to send 20 quid back. But what's annoyed me is, well, I think you saw how badly it was packaged. You know, in one axis the bubble wrap was up against the side of a cardboard box. I shouldn't have to be fixing this. And it's a source of potential failure in future, and it would cost me more than 20 quid for a new back piece like this, and I'm now having to take time with super glue and epoxy and heat shrink and, you know, etc. to try and fix this. So £80 for something like this isn't too bad. So I think what I'll do is I'll just start by, I'll super glue this down to start with, yeah, so we get a bond here. But before I do that, I'm just going to cut a small section away here of this carefully. I'll just nip into it to start with on the edge there. Hope it doesn't get worse. Nip down a bit further. That will do, I think. I don't want to go too low. I'm just going to carefully try and bend that piece out. And the thing is, when you're manipulating crusty plastics like this, you could create more damage. So I'm just going to try, there we go, just bend that away at that point. Just so they've got a little channel there now, you might be able to see, where I can get the heat shrink down to that gap. Yeah, so it's not going to be very long, the gap. In fact, you know, I could just widen that more. It's going to be alright. It's low enough, because it's going to have some epoxy around it. So I think that should be okay. Yeah, so let's, without further ado, just try and get some of this to come out of here. There we go, it's coming out, blooming heck. It's never usually like that. I usually spend about an hour trying to get super glue to come out the blooming thing, and we'll go all around the circumference there, that'll do, and then carefully try and get this into position here. Up, a little bit of micro adjustment just to get that spot on. That's it. So I'm just going to let that set now. I think, just make sure it is, yeah, perfectly positioned. And then once that's had, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes to set, I'll get a piece of heat shrink, get some epoxy, get the epoxy around first, put the piece of heat shrink over, and then shrink that, and then we'll just leave that for a few days before I screw that point back on, I think. But I will just reassemble this. I know this is not the focus of this video, this is just, you know, an add-on, really, an extra. But we will do a series on this D2. I think I will, at some point, when I've got some more time, when I get through a few of the things that are on the bench, the 3000 in particular, we'll get the board out of this. Won't make the mistake I did before with this. When you remove the anode cap there, Obviously, you know, it's very dangerous. You can kill yourself. The tube can hold, you know, 20 kilovolts. But the point there, the thing I wouldn't do is use a metal tool to lift the cap off. Use a metal tool to discharge it to start with carefully, rubber gloves and stuff. But when you remove the cap, don't stick a screwdriver up there and slide around to try and find the prong to disconnect it, because you scratch this coating off here. And I've got some of that stuff actually that I plan to stick on mine, because there's a little bit scuffed off, and you can get arcing if you're not careful, because the coating of this tube here, this is all like ground, and you can get arcing going on. That's the purpose of this red paint around here. It's like high voltage, you know, it's got a good level of high voltage, you know, what's the word, high breakdown voltage, so that you don't get shorts and things and arcs. But yeah, we'll do this as a separate series. It's going to be very samey compared to mine. It's got the same tantalums down here, look, I can see them, 3 orange tantalums. Those will need swapping out, all of the main caps. So we'll do a full recap on this, and at the same time I might just then strip the other one down and swap out several of the caps on that haven't been done. But I mean, the nice thing with doing it that way around, this is the same revision board. There are some differences though. This doesn't have everything the other one does, which is weird. This is the D2. You'd think the D2 would be better. I thought this had a SCART socket, but it doesn't. And there's a load of stuff missing down here. The other one, I'm sure, has got more populated around here. Quite a lot more, actually. So, I don't know, it's a bit strange. I'm not actually sure what the difference between these two are, and we can cover that in the video. But there's definitely a difference here. Has this got some sort of dynamic convergence thing going on or something? I mean, I'm sort of seeing the same number of rings here, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe the other one had 8. I don't know. I could be going bonkers. I think this has got less rings, so maybe it's got a dynamic convergence or something. And of course, dynamic convergence is something that the other monitor's probably got. What I mean is like something where it's automated. You know, like the electronics on here is capable of using this coil here to do some adjustment, and there's a trim pot or something. But the board revision it does look the same. It just looks less populated in areas. I've got to try and do all this now without sticking myself to the camcorder as well. Right, hang on. So I'm just going to scoop a big amount of that like that, and just start to smear it around this point. Let's get some more. Smear it around there. The last massive blob here, like right onto that mount point and this side. I'm going to go wash my hands before I do the hot air application here. Try and get it over the thing without smearing it all away. There we go. Like that. Then just bring the tool back in just to smear some up here. Like that. Right, sorry if it wobbles, you are on the chair. I've had to reach over to the bench here. I'm now going to just wait for this to go down to around 100. Bear in mind, when you heat things like epoxy or super glue, vapours are produced which could be toxic. Yeah. So, yeah, you need good ventilation. Anyway, hopefully we'll agree that that's going to be a fairly resilient bond. Right, so that's had time to dry. I've used a knife just to cut the top. It's a little bit uneven there still, you know, the blue stuff is sort of just on the very edge. But it's kind of rubbery, you know, so it's not going to be a problem. I'm not going to tighten this screw up just yet. I'll put the other 3 back in. Yeah, there was a small piece of black plastic flowing around in there as well. I don't know where that came from. And a cream piece. You can see that here. I can't work out where that's from. So I'm just going to put those 2. I suspect it's going to be one of the side pieces somewhere from around here. But externally, you can't see where this goes at all. There's nothing missing from around the edge. So the only other point of interest here is when I looked at mine in part 1 or part 2, there was no screw here. I always wondered about that. There was a hole, and I always wondered what went there. And it's the case of the 3 of these screws, they're all the same. So yeah, that's that one. So I'll get the other one in here, but then I'm going to keep the 3rd one out. I'm going to go compare to my spare screws and see if I've got one for mine, because that's like 2. And as I said, there's a 3rd one here, so I'm just going to go away and look, see if I've got one of these. Yeah, I found one there. It's not quite the same colour, and it's not as long. Oh, hang on, where's it gone? But the thread is the same as far as I can see. Hang on. Yeah, it's about the same thickness. So let's just test this one out there. Now, I'm not going to put it in this position. It's going to go into that little... Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that'll be fine. It goes in fair distance there. So we'll stick that in the position there on mine, because mine doesn't have one. Not that it makes any difference to anything, but yeah, anyway, it does have mounts in all the right places on mine now. Yeah, so definitely a larger gap on this side than the other one, so you can tell, you know, that impact has had an effect. Anyway, at least I got the 20 quid back. Obviously it's very dirty, it's very yellowed, but we'll deal with this in another video. It will be another video. Anyway, it feels like a good place to just wrap up here. We'll just test 1 or 2 games on this. But you can see it looks crystal clear, the alignment's really good. And you know what? The curvature towards the top here, you know, I pointed out, comes up here and up here, maybe a little bit more. It's the same on the other one. The other one is exactly the same. Maybe not quite as far up here, but it looks the same. You've got to be like right down, looking at it straight on to realise the picture's pretty square. So, yeah, I'm very, very pleased. And I don't know whether you can tell, I'm not sure whether I loaded this game on that other monitor, but there's little in it. The other one's just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit sharper. But this needs more calibration, so we may come back to this at some other point, you know, like the brightness and contrast level. You know, I can go very bright on this, let me show you. And I had to do that. Can you see how bright we can go? So that you can see all of the stuff here when you shouldn't be able to. So the black level is not set quite right on this, and I had to do that because of the green screen, because if we switch to green screen, look how dark it is. So yeah, and that might just be the green bias level is too low, or there could be a fault on the green screen part of this. So yeah, we'll look at that in another video. And I showed in a previous video, I think when we did the power switch, that when you switch back, sometimes you can see the scan lines there because of that, because the screen level is set too high. And that's the lowest, so that's like the lowest brightness. Should be darker than that really, so I've got that set quite high, just to take into account the issue with the green screen. But yeah, hopefully you'll agree, that looks pretty darn good. And if I didn't explain already, you can get 3D printed doors like this to replace missing doors. So yeah, the colour is, you know, it's different, you could paint it, etc. But you know what, it looks fine to me. Back to workbench. Yeah, so the interlace mode, I would say this monitor is marginally flickerier than the other one. So I don't know what the difference between the D1 and the D2 is, but in terms of interlace mode, I noticed the flicker more here, I think. I think that's safe to say. But I mean, it's crystal clear, super sharp. Well, if we load Turrican 2 on there, let's just see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks really good. I'll zoom you in a little bit. Yeah, so you're not seeing the full picture there, but you can see, you know, it's pretty clear, the colours are good. Yeah, I think you'll agree, that is pretty darn good really. Because, I'll be honest, at the start of this video, I thought there's no way it's going to look half as good as it was with all that bodgy stuff on the coil, but yeah, shows that you don't necessarily need to worry too much about what that coil looks like cosmetically, and even how bulged up it was, it's had no effect at all. So very, very, very pleased. Yeah, I'm still not sure about the linearity, but if you look down here, it looks pretty regular, but sometimes when you've got things scrolling up it just looks a bit odd, but I think it always did to my eyes. Oh, dead already. I think there's a free life up there, isn't there? That's what I was trying to get. Incidentally, there's a new version of Turrican 2, isn't there, AGA? I need to get that on here. I think Dave Pooh did some playthroughs on that, like a playthrough, started one. Yeah, that looks great. We're in on the TF4060 here at the moment. Let's just skip the music. Every time I see that music now, I think of that A500 with the RAM issue that I diagnosed. There was a problem with chip RAM, there was like one bit or something in one address somewhere, and it was just like, it was causing a glitch on Vroom and nothing else anywhere else. It was a bizarre fault, that. I'll be linked top right to that one. Yeah, it looks crystal clear, it really does. I'm blown away with the end result on this monitor. I thought it was going to be game over. How do you start this? Ah, there we go. Yeah, I was getting impatient. Yeah, that looks fantastic. Oh, I'm playing with the mouse, aren't I? You've got to go up on the mouse to accelerate, and I've got manual gears, it seems. Yeah, very, very pleased. That monitor's fantastic. Oh, bit of my driving isn't. Lion King AGA. I don't think I've ever played that on the Amiga. Just to see what it looks like. I mean, Aladdin's pretty good. I did like Aladdin on the Mega Drive. It was around that time when Mega Drive games were being ported from the Amiga or vice versa. You know, people were transitioning away from the Amiga or maybe adding a Mega Drive at the same time. Because I did. I had a Mega Drive, a SNES and the Amiga all at the same time, actually. I wish I'd kept all the Amigas. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Nice animation. Not much going on, apart from me hitting the porcupines. How do you attack these things? You can't. Anyway, that's working. Yeah, so thanks for bearing with me with the delays on getting videos out. I've just had so many things break recently. Hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel, please see Coffee and Patreon links down below. Consider hitting the subscribe button or the thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next video.